Bibliophiles, and welcome back to Blatantly Bookish. I'm Marissa, and today I'm here with my August reading wrap-up. August, though not such a great filming month for me, as you can tell by the lack of videos on my channel, was a pretty great reading month for me. So, without further ado, I will get on to the books. The first book I finished in the month of August was Terry Pratchett's Wyrd Sisters, which is the sixth in the Discworld novels series. Discworld, for those of you who don't know, is a series about a planet shaped like a disc that is balanced on the back of 4 elephants, which in turn stands on the back of a giant space turtle named Great Atuin. It has plenty of supernatural elements, it's got death, witches, wizards, but it's a lot of fun and it's really well-written satire. This particular book, I think, is a really great place to jump into Discworld. It begins with the murder of King Lancre and the delivery of a baby and rightful heir to the throne to 3 witches named Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Og, and Margaret Garlick. The witches end up meddling in the affairs of royal politics to ensure the proper succession of kings. It's a compelling riff on Macbeth. It manages to poke fun at the play, revere the genius of the play, and provide its own interpretation as well. It's rife with other Shakespeare references, most notably the dead king's ghost and the play within a play scenario from Hamlet. And I love how the theater troupe in the book decides to call their theater the Disc because it's a microcosm of the whole world. It's clearly a reference to the Globe Theater, and it's just a delightful little detail. The book discusses themes of power, ambition, the influences and magic of theater and art, and the malleability of the truth. It is a wonderful place to jump into Discworld, as I said, especially if you are a Shakespeare lover or if you're familiar with Macbeth or Hamlet or both. I'd like to leave you with one quote that really stood out to me. Granny never had much time for words. They were so insubstantial. Now she wished that she had found the time. Words were indeed insubstantial. They were as soft as water, but they were also as powerful as water, and now they were rushing over the audience, eroding the levees of veracity, and carrying away the past. Speaking of the power of words and speech, the next book I finished in the month of August was Women and Power, a Manifesto by Mary Beard. It is a brilliant, rather slim book that is actually based on 2 different lectures that Mary Beard gave. The book is about, well, obviously women and power, as the title says, and how women have been silenced throughout history. It's about different ways of having the female voice heard publicly, and how oftentimes that's by disguising it as male or lowering the voice. Beard pulls examples from antiquity, the Greeks and Romans, but she also discusses more modern examples and how Greek and Roman culture and mythology is still used and seen in our society today. She discusses everything from the Medusa myth to, far more recently, Trump's reaction to SNL parodies of Sean Spicer. She uses examples from British politics as well, which I was far less familiar with. She discusses what power is and asks, how can we redefine power to include women? This was a very thought-provoking little book, and it made me realize how the way we define power is actually very derivative of antiquity's concept of power. It shocked me how something so much about the ancient Greeks and Romans could seamlessly and simultaneously discuss current affairs. It made me want to read SPQR, which is actually sitting on my shelves somewhere, because Mary Beard is brilliant, and I don't know much about the Greeks and Romans, and I think I would like to. I also read Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Wyrd this month. So Sing Unburied Sing has been making the rounds on BookTube since its release, but I finally got around to reading it this month. For those of you who don't know, it's about a dysfunctional family in the South. Jojo and his younger sister live with their grandparents. Their mother, Leonie, can barely take care of herself, let alone her children. But when their father is released from jail, Leonie takes Jojo and his sister to pick their father up. Jojo, who is only 13, views his grandparents as his true parental figures and functions as the caretaker or mother figure for his younger sister. The book explores family dynamics in interesting ways. The relationships between the son, grandfather, and grandmother were well done, as were the relationships between parents and children and husbands and wives in general. It was an intricately woven family portrait. Race also plays a role in the story, as Jojo's mother is black and his father is white. The book was written from different perspectives, mostly Jojo's and Leonie's. I could critique this by saying that the voices of the two characters are very similar, maybe too similar, but perhaps this could be deliberate and show how the mother's maturity level is on par with her 13-year-old son's. Leonie can be rather selfish and childlike, and Jojo often takes on the responsibility of someone far beyond his age. They end up meeting in the middle, maturity-wise. I did have an issue with one aspect of the plotline, though, and that is how the supernatural elements of the book were woven in. A literal ghost from the past, a dead inmate who carries all of the troubled history of the South with him, was just too heavy-handed for my taste. That being said, Jesmyn Wyrd is a spectacular author. Her prose in this book is fluid and gritty and darkly beautiful. I personally preferred her novel Salvage the Bones, but as the winner of the National Book Award and nominee for plenty of other awards, Unburied is quite acclaimed. Clearly, not everyone minded her use of the supernatural as much as I did, and I do think that the prose and family dynamics are so beautifully written that it's worth a read. I also had the distinct pleasure of reading The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa this month. It is a unique and subtle story about the dynamic relationship between a housekeeper, her son, and an eccentric math professor with a traumatic brain injury. His condition is very similar to the main character in 50 First Dates, if you've seen that movie. He cannot create new memories that last more than 80 minutes, which means that every 80 minutes, everything he is doing in the moment is interrupted, and he needs to be reintroduced to those who he has met and the activities that he was doing since his accident. The book examines the beauty of math and the divine sequence of numbers, as well as memory, dependence, and the profound impact people can have on each other. How is it possible to create meaningful relationships with a condition like this? How can a one-sided relationship like that even thrive? The story has such an original plotline. It's poignant and beautifully crafted. Strangely enough, none of the characters possess names, yet we feel so intrinsically connected to them and understand who they are as people. Yoko Ogawa is such a talented author. Trust me, it takes talent to get me to genuinely enjoy reading about both math and baseball. I am massively impressed by the 2 books of hers that I've read so far, this one and Revenge, which had a drastically different writing style, by the way. But Yoko Ogawa is an author that I want to read more of, and perhaps I will do an author profile of her once I've read all of her works. Or rather, I think there's only 2 more that have actually been translated into English for me to read. But after those 2, perhaps I will do an author profile or spotlight or something like that. I have a whole page of quotes from this book, but I will just leave you with one for the moment about beauty and intricacies in math. The pages and pages of complex, impenetrable calculations might have contained the secrets of the universe, copied out of God's notebook. In my imagination, I saw the creator of the universe sitting in some distant corner of the sky, weaving a pattern of delicate lace so fine that even the faintest light would shine through it. The lace stretches out infinitely in every direction, billowing gently in the cosmic breeze. You want desperately to touch it, hold it up to the light, rub it against your cheek, and all we ask is to be able to recreate the pattern, weave it again with numbers, somehow in our own language, to make even the tiniest fragment our own, to bring it back to earth. And last but not least, I read Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley this month. This was a brilliant Jane Austen biography. I listened to it on audiobook while driving, which was a rather pleasant experience. The biography is meticulously researched and passionately written, full of details of Jane Austen's life at home and her relationships with her family. It has the perfect mixture of recounting Jane's life and relating that life to her works of fiction without overstepping the bounds of biographical readings. Worsley references other biographies, Austen's letters and other primary sources, and Austen's novels themselves to piece together a full picture of Jane's life. I relished little details from theories about what caused Jane's death to the fact that Jane and Cassandra called themselves "we the Formidables." I particularly enjoyed learning about their close-knit relationship, as well as Jane's relationships with her nieces. This book was just so brilliant, and I loved how it carried my enthusiasm of Jane Austen July throughout the month of August. I'd like to leave you with one beautiful quote that really encapsulates my experience of this book. For Jane, home was a perennial problem. Where could she afford to live? Amid the many domestic duties of an unmarried daughter and aunt, how could she find the time to write? Where could she keep her manuscripts safe? A home of her own must have seemed to Jane to be always out of reach, with only a tiny stash of capital hard-earned by her writing. The death of her father forced her into a makeshift life in rented lodgings or else shunted between relations who used her as cheap childcare. It's not surprising, then, that the search for home is an idea that's central to Jane's fiction. So that is what I read in the month of August. I actually have already started to have a great September reading month. I've so far finished Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, as well as What Should Be Wild by Julia Fine, and I'm considering making reviews of both of them, but we'll see how much time I have in the coming month. I would love to hear from you guys what you thought of any of the books that I've read or anything I've said in this video. How was your August reading month? What was your favorite book that you read in the month of August? And as always, I look forward to seeing you in another video soon. Bye!